All right, here's an interesting one for you. The modern-day receiver duo. We're looking at Chris Henry Jr. and then Dixon Wyatt as well. We think these guys are potential to stick. And who do you like better?
Yeah, but I mean, kind of touched on them a little bit earlier when we were discussing the race for number one. I mean, long time Ohio State commits, and Oregon was very involved very early on. I would guess like these guys end up at Ohio State, but what happens if Brian Hartline, starts getting linked somewhere else?
He might get a job.
That's a name that I'm certainly not as engulfed in it as you, but hasn't really been out there. To me, like the big picture storyline here is Ohio State has really kind of just drafted at the wide receiver position. And I think Brian Hartline is the best at fine-tuning these wideouts, right? Yeah, he gets the guys that have the biggest upside, have the highest floor, but he squeezes the most out of them, right? I mean, we can point to example after example. I mean, just turn on Red Zone on Sunday. There's going to be a former Buckeye, crossing into the end zone. So, is it much of the same for Ohio State, or is there a little chink in the armor here, just with the distribution of funding and a changing landscape with Dan Lanning there at Oregon? I think that's what you got to keep your eyes on. And one other thing I was thinking about with the Chris Henry, with the Caden Dixon White. Do you remember when Jeremiah Smith ended up signing with Ohio State? Like Ryan Day's reaction during the press conference, like that should have been our sign about what was to come. And obviously, I mean, we had Jeremiah number one, but do we see something similar from Ryan Day if there is some wonky stuff and Ohio State's waiting around for the Mater Day duo to I don't know, officially get the paperwork in?
I think there was also a bit of like, that was the first year where like big NIL was involved in high school, if I recall. And so I think part of that was like, all right, we don't really know how this process is going to work out. Was our approach enough? Was it the right approach? Like, obviously, like in the old school times, we'd have this one easy, right? Given Hartline and their track record, like, would that plus our approach to the new school be enough? And kind of because obviously they knew how good the player was, but also like a sigh of relief, like, okay, all right, like our approach is not totally off on what we're doing here. So, all right, other top 247 talent we should probably discuss here who maybe have a chance to flip. I know like some guys who are getting some continued interest. UCLA commit Carter Gooden. Wisconsin commit Jayden Petit. Florida commit CJ Bronaugh. Penn State commit Matt Sieg. Penn State commit Terry Wiggins. And, of course, Baylor commit Jordan Clay. Any of those guys we think are on serious flip watch?
Yeah, I think all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, Carter Gooden. I love this kid, bud. He's originally from Canada. He's a 4-sport athlete. He's doing, the prep school thing up there in the United States. This is a kid where, I mean, we were super high on him from the jump. And I think a lot of colleges did the thing where, is he an edge? Is he an interior guy? It's like, guys, it doesn't really matter. Like, he's going to give you some versatility. He can get after the quarterback. He's a big, athletic, big body. And it's just been fun to see the adjustment. He's a longtime UCLA commit. There's another coaching search where, hey, who's going to be the guy there? But he just took an official visit to Vanderbilt. He's going to get to Tennessee this weekend for an official visit. He's a guy that is slated to play in the Navy All-American Bowl. He reminds me of Akeem Messidor at Miami. I mean, we always talk about Ruben Bain, but his counterpart on the other side, Akeem Messidor, same thing. Is he an inside guy? Is he an outside guy? Guys, he rushes, he crushes, he closes, he gets to the quarterback. So I think Carter Gooden's one. There's been a few other schools involved there, but hey, how about a Vandy, Tennessee recruiting battle come down the stretch? So yeah, I one to certainly keep an eye on, especially if you reside in the Volunteer State. Jayden Petit, wide receiver out of your neck of the woods there, former neck of the woods, bud. He's on the west coast of Florida. I think this kid has had as good of a senior season as anyone in America, like over 24 touchdown catches through 11 games, might surpass 30, depending on what happens in the state playoffs. He is a longtime Wisconsin commit. And when I studied him, I'm like, how is Luke Fickell getting this wide receiver that can be a game wrecker on the outside? He's big. He's coordinated. He's got some build speed, acrobatic catches. Washington has been involved here. Oklahoma's been involved here. Jim Nagy, Brent Venables, they are doing some things here. So you want to talk about an SEC team that is set to make some noise. They just flipped top 247 running back Jonathan Hatton from Texas A&M. That happened on Monday. Oklahoma, Jim Nagy, when he came in, it took him some time to find his bearings, but I think he's really hitting his stride here. And it's not just him. I mean, that entire department he has built out, the alignment from the top to the bottom, they are certainly parlaying what they have done on the field. So Oklahoma is a team to watch. CJ Bronaugh, Florida commit, but I've had to jump on HQ like multiple times and talk about the Gators class and, hey, what's going on here? What's going on there? He's the one guy where I think Florida could lose him. And he is a height, weight, speed corner, back-to-back 100-meter dash champ in the Sunshine State. Did it in one of the lower classifications, but hey, you put him in 49 other states, he's going to probably win a state title as well. Maybe not in Texas. Ohio State is involved there. He's a former Nebraska commit. Can the Buckeyes continue to add to a really, really good recruiting class? One to keep an eye on. And then I think whoever takes over at Florida, CJ Bronaugh is one of your first calls. So those three there, and then Matt Sieg, safety, longtime Penn State commit. He's an OKG for the 24/7 sports scouting department. Our kind of guy. I mean, he is playing there in Pittsburgh. He has broken multiple records set by Tyler Boyd. He's a starting quarterback. He does it as a safety on defense. He was committed to James Franklin. Obviously, James Franklin's now at Virginia Tech. Indiana's been involved. Notre Dame's been involved. West Virginia's been involved. Everyone is trying to get this kid because, he is a hard-nosed football player, instinctive individual. Reminds me of Dan Jackson, who was at Georgia, former walk-on. He was a high school quarterback. He's now playing in the league on Sundays. I just think these guys are so valuable, with these cover two shells and their ability to read and diagnose. It sounds like Matt Sieg likely going to announce on signing day. And hey, maybe Penn State has a coach in place by then. I mean, certainly he has not backed off that commitment to the Nittany Lions. I would consider it soft, but I think he's one on Wednesday, December 3rd, where, when we start talking about winners and losers, whoever lands Matt Sieg, that's going to help their case for the winner category when it comes to what happens on day one of the signing period.
100%, man. I'm interested to see like where he ends up going on the Oklahoma piece. Like, when they got there, there was a lot of like, not necessarily just from Jim, but just like, folks around there like, hey, these 3 stars are amazing. And, kind of like the messaging was sort of like at least how I read it, like the implied was like, hey, we're fine. Like we can out scout everybody and like get all these 3 stars. And I was like, that just seems so unlikely because yes, I know y'all came from the NFL, but like, it's not like the scouts for these college departments currently suck, right? Like they've been watching this a long time. They understand some of the translations and, some of the things there that matter that maybe you wouldn't pick up. Like I think Carolina's department didn't at first, right? Like, hey, height, weight, speed. We've unlocked the secret. And like, oh, yeah, height, weight, speed. That's a good idea. And like, wish everybody else wouldn't have thought of that. But like, I am curious. I mean, what are they? 12 4-stars, 10 3-stars on the composite, or something, something like that. A little bit less on 24/7. Like, do you think they're trying to go like in fantasy football? You'd call it stars and scrubs, right? Where you pay up for like a couple studs, and then you kind of just like pepper the board with cheap options and hope your studs stay healthy. And then I guess the implication here is like maybe just attack the transfer portal and see like which of your underrated kids hit. Like, what do you think about their strategy here? Because they're not really like they have one top 100. Like, I guess Hatton's now number 100. So they have 2 top 100 kids, 4 kids in the top 247. It's not like, SEC standard, just not like a real impressive looking class.
And I think 2027 is going to be the cycle for them. I don't have that class pulled up, but it's certainly in the top 10. They've done some really good work there early. Bud, I think having limited interactions with Jim Nagy. I mean, certainly it's
always really good dude to me. Like when we would chop it up. Yeah,
he's one of the brightest minds I think in the sport. From my perch and how I see this, they're certainly going to go after their first rounders at some point. And those would be the 5 stars. Those would be the guys at the top of the board. But where they really seem to be trying to hit and find the value is in day 3 and then in that UDFA range. So, all right, let's call day 3 anyone in the top 247 after 100. And then we'll call the UDFAs, any of those 3-star prospects. I mean, there isn't a guy that they have taken with 3 stars next to their name where I'm like, I don't really see this. And they're in the hunt for this kid, Dane Bathurst out of Indiana, off ball linebacker, could play some on ball. Dad was a former Navy SEAL. Like, he's been like a blue star personal darling for us. And I think, Oklahoma fans would be like, well, hey, why isn't he a 4-star prospect? Can't make everyone 4 stars. But to me, like, this guy makes sense. This guy's got developmental upside. So, is it like the money ball approach? Yeah, that would be like a lazy term for it. But I think it's more of, okay, I'm coming from the NFL. I got an NFL background. What is working in the NFL? Who are the teams that are playing for the Super Bowl, right? It's the teams that are really hitting in that day 3 UDF range. And yes, they go out and they get the free agents in the transfer portal. Yes, they hit it out of the park with their first rounders and their second rounders, but really the spine, the backbone of that roster is where they're getting the value. And I think that's what they're getting to, that sweet spot here. And, again, I think like Oklahoma winning is really helping, because as much as recruiting has changed and its compensation and all that, like, you still got to give kids a reason to go there. You still got to build the relationships, and you still got to get them on campus. Like, you can't just do that with a written or verbal offer.